Hi guys, I'm Karen Rice and welcome to my Misty Trees watercolour video. Here's my materials I'm going to be using in the video. I've got my watercolour pad taped up around the edges with some framing tape. I've got a large brush, a roller, some salt, a spray bottle, a little lid to put my colours in, a little plastic card to scrape my paint on, and 3 watercolours. I'm keeping the colour spectrum quite simple just so I can worry more about the painting than the colours. But the first colour I'm using is Daniel Smith Hansa Yellow Light, Purple Pite Genuine from Daniel Smith, and some Viridian Cotman watercolour from Winsor & Newton. Just squeeze those in a plastic lid. I'm just going to wet my paper. It's a Winsor & Newton gummed pad with a knot surface. And the reason why I put the tape around the edges is so that you don't have to get your fingers in the painting there as well. So now wet on wet, I'm just dabbing some paint on my little bit of plastic card. This is actually an old credit card or a bank card I've got I've cut up. And I'm just putting the paint on using that. So because the paper is wet, you can see how the paint's running down here. You've got to be really, if you're going to have a go at this, be really gentle with the card. I've done this with my students just recently, and a lot of them are putting the paint on too scratchy and they're scratching the paper, so be really gentle. Now I'm just using this big old paintbrush that I've had for years, and I've got it fully loaded with water. I'm just touching that paint because the paint's been put on literally straight from the tube, and just so I can move it. And you can see now, because the surface is wet, I want it to run. And this painting is really just a very creative picture. I have no idea what I'm doing at the moment. Obviously I know I'm putting paint on paper, but I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm doing this completely from my imagination, just responding really to this technique of putting paint on with a card on a wet surface. But can you see how beautiful that Purple Pite Genuine is from Daniel Smith? It's that purpley colour. It kind of breaks up and you're left with this residue which creates such beautiful textures. The Viridian, on the other hand, a little bit of regret using this colour. I'm in for a penny, in for a pound now, so I'm just going to carry on. But it is very powerful Viridian, so I probably just using this technique of taking it straight with the card and putting it on, you don't have any control. Whereas if you have a brush, sometimes you can sort of add colours to the Viridian a bit more. But you know, I'll see how it goes. It's a very strong staining colour. It's very powerful, so not easily to be controlled sometimes. Beautiful though, mixed with blues or browns, it makes some stunning colours. So I'm actually, have you seen there, I've just used the card to do some printing as well, just to get lots and lots of texture out of this little plastic card. I'm just going to, from now, you know, here and now, I'm just going to be sort of spraying every now and again just to see what happens. You can see I've just sprayed the middle there, re-wetting the surface, just letting that water run down. Giving it another little spray. Actually, the Viridian's looking quite nice now. You can see all the marks that I've made as well with the card. In some ways, if you wanted less sort of track marks like that, you could actually use a bigger card. But obviously, when I'm painting this, I'm sort of thinking, well, where's this going to take me? So I quite like the look of that now. It's just sort of looking, the top bit looks lovely and misty. Always have a bit of a tissue, kitchen towel on standby just to mop up those edges when you're, you know, sort of tilting and getting the extra water and paint off the board, off the watercolour paper. So I've tilted to the left, now I've tilted downwards as well. I've re-wet the sky, and I'm just putting that Daniel Smith Purple Pite Genuine on wet onto the paper. It's one of the Primatech colours that Daniel Smith do. Some of the colours from Daniel Smith are so beautiful because they create some of these amazing sort of textures in the paint. And you see now with this sky, I'm giving it a little spray again. Look at, you can just see those textures that it creates. It's just stunning. Really, really stunning. Just, you know, creating some atmospheric conditions really. So I'm letting that dry off there, and I'm just using again that same colour. It's a difficult name to say really, hope I'm saying it correctly, but just again printing with my card. Very thick, neat paint. Some places the paper's drying a bit, others it's still a little bit damp. And now I'm just dragging some of the paint along to make it look like fence posts, really, you know, sort of separating. This is going to separate now the background from the foreground. It's really fun painting like this because you never know quite what you're going to get. You're just experimenting, having fun with some colours, and you know, using just this plastic card to paint with. And it limits you, but it also allows you the freedom of creating these different marks. Just here, I'm just spraying off a little bit now because it was a little bit hard, that fence. So the beauty is with the spraying, you don't actually have to touch the paper with a brush or anything. It's a very gentle way of removing watercolour paint. So I'm just thinking now I'll put a little bit of texture with the card on the horizon here. I think I love painting trees. It's one of my favourite things in landscape painting. So I'm just going to sort of create sort of a thick amount of paint here with the Viridian and the Daniel Smith Purple Type Genuine colour. And actually now I'm using my fingers, as you can see, my little pinky, just to sort of smooth the paint on. And using the card now to take off paint so it looks like the tree trunks and branches. Isn't this amazing? You can just do all this with one old piece of plastic card. Amazing. And so much fun. So just putting a few more of these trees in here. Really nice technique that is, actually just lifting off the paint like that. And you're kind of drawing with the card, really, you know, sort of just using it as like a pencil, really, but the paint's wet and you can just draw it through. Try not to press too hard though, because you don't want to really scratch the surface of the paper. Just continuing here, putting the last few on there. I've made the trees on the right hand side a little taller just to sort of give a nice balance to my composition, which is quite nice. Just putting that through there. It's quite nice over that beautiful sky as well, which is drying a little bit now. I'm just pulling off some more little branches at the bottom of these trees. Just making a little bit of texture below the trees. And it's lovely because this paint, because it's on quite thick, comes off quite nicely. It does still leave a stain underneath, because obviously Viridian's a staining colour as well, but it's quite nice. It just leaves a lighter green. So now this is sort of semi-dry paint, so I'm actually now spraying it just to soften these trees a little bit. Maybe pushing them, making them look like they're in the distance a little bit, sort of going away in the mist to create sort of like a misty tree effect. I've got sort of just like a very dilute paint on my brush here, my large brush. So I am doing a little bit of brush painting now. It's quite loose though, just to tone down that foreground a little bit. So removing my framing tape from my watercolour paper, and it always gives a lovely, oops, it's slightly torn there. Got to be very careful when you remove it, don't want it to pull it too hard. But as you can see, it's given a lovely white frame. Instead of having to mount it, I can just have a look at it like that. But thank you so much for watching my video. If you've got any questions or comments, please put them in the section below. I will be listing all the materials I've used in the description. I really hope you've enjoyed this YouTube video. If you'd like to see news of my latest videos, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.